as I've been telling you guys, been having some problems with misfire in my cylinder number 3. Checked the coils, I changed the plugs, to no avail. I'm still getting misfire. I was supposed to do some welding today, but it's raining. It's gonna rain for the next couple days. So I'm gonna diagnose this thing, I think. I'm gonna pull the valve cover off and see if one of the valve springs broke. I'll probably stick a borescope down into the cylinder to see if I can see the walls. This thing's got 208,000 miles on it. In the morning when it warms up, it shakes a little bit, basically. So I have a feeling that I have low compression. I gotta take this valve cover off on this side. So yeah, let's get through this. So let's hope that it's just like a broken valve spring or one of the rollers came off or something like that. Let's pray, because as much as I would like a new engine, I don't want to spend almost $8,000. Let's pull it apart and hope that it's just something, it's a valve or something. And if it's not, then we'll go from there. Yeah, all these injector things are broken. This one too. All the clips are broken. All right, so while I'm working on my truck, figure I'd tell you guys a story about how I started out on my own. My early 20s, mid 20s, I started working for a steel company that did fabrication and sold steel basically to the oil fields and Republic of Oxnard. Basically, I was a driver. I moved my way up into the yard. I started pulling steel, loading trucks, and then they moved me into fabrication, and then eventually I was basically running the show. I was running fab. Basically, I was doing everything. I was doing logistics, fabrication. They would bring blueprints and drawings in, and I would go through them and say, yes, we can do this. No, we can't do this. Man, thing doesn't want to come out. All right, that's off. There was one job in particular that I did for that steel company that was pretty rad. This was kind of like my coming of age, kind of like figuring out what I was capable of. The owner of that steel company, he bought a roller, a huge roller for rolling, like it would roll 1.5 inch plate, 10 foot long. And I mean, it was a mechanical roller. The thing was a beast. It weighed 53 tons. And what happened is he bought it sight unseen, didn't have it checked or anything, realized that it was going to cost almost twice as much as the machine cost to move it, because it was inside of a building in a pit and it had no overhead, so they couldn't just roll a crane up and move it. It had to be moved basically by hand. You know, the guy was my friend, and I was trying to keep the business open because I thought I was going to basically stay there, work there for the rest of my life. I mean, it was, you know, I'd been there already for, I don't know, 10 or 11 years. So I figured, you know, this is a good place to work. I'll keep working here. I told the guy, you know what? I can move it, you know? He kind of, when I told him that, he kind of looked at me like, you're full of shit. And I told him, no, I can move it. I'm positive I can move it. So I built this apparatus, and I built these basically 6-inch increment steps out of steel, and I bought a 60-ton jack, and I moved that fucking thing. Me and one other guy. I had to fabricate all the parts to actually move it. So it's not like, and then we had to rent some machine skates. I had to buy the jack. So it took us about 5 to 7 days to move it. And the thing was huge, man. It was 53 tons. It weighed as much as a Sherman tank, literally. Like a Sherman tank's around 50 something tons. So we had to jack it up 6 inches at a time, get it up out of a 3-foot deep pit. And then we had to jack it up, get some runners under it that the machine skates could sit on. Then we had to move it. Then we had to jack it up so that a lowboy could get under it. Then we had to jack it back down onto the lowboy, move it, take it up off the lowboy, put it down on the floor, skate it into the area. And I built the pit too. We dug a big hole, poured concrete, put 1.5 inch rebar throughout the thing. It was a steel company, so we had it in stock. So we built a pit, which is basically a swimming pool, 3-foot deep swimming pool. Poured concrete, and then so when we got it there, we skated it in and we jacked it up, took the skates out, jacked it back down into the pit, and it was there. And yeah, my boss was freaking stoked, because in general I think it cost us, it was like $2,800 plus my time, which was me and one other guy with some overtime. So I mean, we moved it for less than 10 grand, and they were quoting like $70,000 or $80,000 to move it. So he was, at that point, he was stoked. And you know, I felt pretty good, because I felt like, oh man, I just saved our asses because we were, you know, at that point, the company was having a real hard time. He was talking about laying people off. So I was trying to save people's jobs, including my own. And then after that happened, me and him got into a huge fight because the Sunday that I finished moving it, he showed up on a Sunday morning, and he'd been at the freaking casino all night. And yeah, he lost like $40,000 at the casino. And I blew up on him. I pretty much just gave him a piece of my mind and told him he's an asshole. You know, the reason that I was trying to help him was to try to save our asses, and he's out there wasting money. Now this guy, you know, it was his money, but I just felt like, you know, he was constantly complaining about how we were gonna go out of business. I got pissed, and that was kind of like the point where I just decided, yeah, this place, I gotta move, you know. So I moved on to a heavy equipment yard that did repairs on heavy equipment and trailers and tractors and stuff like that. I learned a lot there. I was in charge of one other guy, and then one day we were doing a heavy plate. We're moving a 3/4 inch 4x8 plate. I had to cut a piece off of it. We were fixing something on a skip loader. I needed a 3/4 plate. We took it out, I cut a piece off, Torch cut a piece off of it, and then we were putting it back. He had it on a plate clamp, which is basically a clamp that comes down onto the plate and grips it by the pressure of the plate. And when we were putting it away, he dropped it basically, and it fell on my leg and broke my leg. After the plate fell on my leg and broke my leg, he jumped off the forklift, and the forklift ran on top of the plate, on top of me. It snapped my fibula and my tibial, split it in two. So, and then he rolled the forklift on top of it. Luckily, I had some good boots. I paid some good money for some steel toe and reinforced boots. Those things basically saved my foot. If it wasn't for those boots, it would have crushed my foot too, just from the sheer weight of the plate. So he jumps off of the forklift rolls on top of me. You know, I'm yelling at him to pull the forklift off me and pull the plate off me. So he gets back on the forklift, picks the plate back up, and I had to basically, you know, I got picked up by an ambulance. So ambulance takes me to the doctor. So this is all workers' comp. They left me sitting with a broken leg for a month before I could get surgery because of all the paperwork. So then I went to surgery. This was a mess too, because I don't know who they gave me to, but this guy did work on my leg. Middle of my surgery, I woke up. They weren't even done. They were still working on my leg. I woke up in the middle of surgery. So I pulled my IV out. I woke up mid-surgery like, holy shit, I'm not supposed to be awake right now. The doctor hit me with a couple epidurals, I think, like 2 of them. And then he finally put an IV back in and put me back to sleep. About a month later, when I started putting pressure on my leg again, I realized that I couldn't walk on it. There was something wrong. I don't know if it was the hardware. Something was poking me. Every time I would put pressure on my leg, it felt like I was getting jabbed in the knee with like a needle. So eventually I had to go back. It took another 3 months before they sent me back to surgery to another doctor, because the doctor that did my surgery disappeared off the face of the planet. I don't know if he thought I was gonna sue him, which everyone told me I should sue him, but you know, I just wanted my leg back. So finally, about 3 months later, they decided, because he was the only doctor that could release me because he did the surgery. About 3 months later, they finally did something so that I could see another doctor. This doctor was much better. I went in, he put me down, felt like 15 minutes. I came out, and right away I could feel that the pressure was not in my leg anymore. And then that's when I basically started healing. About 3 to 4 months later, I was back to normal. My leg was a little weak, but I was pretty much back to normal. I was gonna try to go back to the steel yard because I wasn't sure what I was gonna do. I was looking at different welding jobs, and they, you know, most of the welding jobs were gonna pay 15 to 18 bucks an hour. That type of money, you couldn't survive. So we don't have 2 incomes. Cost of housing, so this is a while ago too, so now it's even crazier now. But just the cost of everything was so expensive that 15 to 18 bucks an hour, I'd have to have 2 jobs in order to survive. I went to go talk to that guy, and he had died. He had a heart attack in his office and died. So I was like, holy shit, dude, what am I gonna do now? So I found a job at a fabrication place that was like doing like ornamental fabrication, like in houses and stuff like that. And I was there for about a month and a half, and then I quit because it was like 18 bucks an hour, no benefits. The guy was a jerk too. You know, he basically was like, yeah, dude, yeah, you handle it, dude, handle everything. You know, you go in, you take measurements, you do everything yourself, and if you fuck up, it's on you, and you pay for the material and the time. And at that point, I was just kind of like looking around for other jobs. Randomly, one of my buddies called me because I had done metal work and asked me to make a sign for this ranch. Came out pretty cool. I only charged for the plasma cutting of the sign. I charged way too little, man. I could charge way more. I was like, if I get paid, you know, 50 bucks an hour, I'll be happy for cutting a sign. That same customer that I did the sign for ended up, there was a lady that needed her trailer trailer fixed. She had a horse trailer. Everyone had told this lady that her horse trailer was trash and she had to get a new horse trailer. Yeah, I got all these, but I got to get to the ones in the back. This has to come off, which is just a few little, I think they're like 6mm screws. So after I'd gotten basically fixed that lady's trailer, that's when I started getting people calling me. It all started with that one trailer. So I'm looking in here, it's hard to see, but there's an exhaust and then there's an intake. And sometimes these springs will break and that'll give you misfires, but both the springs are fine. Both of the cam followers are fine. I was really hoping to find something simple. So I'm gonna stick a borescope. I'm gonna take this spark plug out. I'm gonna stick a borescope down in there. All right, so spark plug's out. Let's stick my borescope down in there and see if we can see something. Yeah, so there, I don't know if you can see that, but that green color, that's all coolant. Right there, that's coolant in the top of my piston. So that's why it's misfiring. It's got coolant on the top of that cylinder. Crap.